A heartfelt journey of a nephew's struggle to reclaim his passion for music against family resistance. Will love and support prevail in this emotional tale? The stage fright incident. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation where I would have to advocate for my 12-year-old nephew's passion for music against my own brother. But here I am, and it all started during a youth Sunday at his church. My nephew, a budding piano player, was set to perform for the first time in front of a large crowd. Imagine the lights, the anticipation, and the supportive faces of family and friends. But when it was his turn, nerves got the best of him. He sat at that piano bench, tears streaming down his cheeks, unable to muster the courage to play. Despite the standing ovation he received for simply trying, he felt defeated. His call came a week later, filled with frustration and disappointment. He wanted to give it another shot at the next Youth Sunday, but his father said no. The argument that ensued between my brother and his wife was heated, with my sister-in-law supporting my nephew's desire to try again, and my brother firmly against it. That's when I decided to step in. I thought, as a caring uncle, it was my duty to understand my brother's perspective and hopefully persuade him to support his son. When I called my brother, he explained his reasoning. Playing at church was about God, and he believed my nephew needed to learn that not every opportunity comes with a second chance. I felt a knot twist in my stomach. How could he not see the value in encouraging his son to overcome his fears? I argued that church should be a place of support and redemption, but he was unmoved. After our conversation, I felt helpless, knowing how much my nephew wanted to play again. Would anyone else in the church offer a different perspective? Part 2. The aftermath of the call. Days passed, and every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it would be my nephew sharing some good news. Instead, I found myself reflecting on my conversation with my brother. I realized I might have overstepped by intervening in a family matter that wasn't mine. But my heart ached for my nephew, who just wanted to prove to himself that he could overcome his fears. So I decided to reach out to my brother again to apologize for my previous call. To my surprise, he was more open this time. He appreciated my apology and shared more insights about his parenting style. He explained that he wanted his son to understand the importance of respecting parental authority and learning about consequences. While I understood his intention, I found myself growing more anxious. How could he not see that supporting a child's passion could teach resilience? I spoke to my nephew again, encouraging him to keep the fire alive. But when he mentioned that his dad had talked to the youth pastor and insisted on pulling him from the upcoming Youth Sunday lineup, my heart sank. It seemed like my brother was not just denying his son a second chance, he was snuffing out a budding passion. My nephew expressed disappointment, and it broke my heart to see his spirit dim. I tried to remind him that every artist faces challenges, but he was starting to lose hope. He mentioned that his dad's decision felt final, and it was as if a door had closed on him. Would he ever find the courage to play again? Part 3. A change of heart. As the days turned into weeks, my nephew's situation weighed heavily on my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I reached out to him again, hoping to provide some encouragement. That's when he told me that his father had spoken to the youth pastor and insisted on pulling him for the lineup for the next Youth Sunday. My brother claimed it was because God told him his son wasn't ready. What did that even mean? The youth pastor had been supportive and offered a second chance to try again, yet my brother's pride seemed to overshadow his son's aspirations. I felt a surge of frustration bubbling within me. I wanted to scream, "This is about your son, not you." I tried my best to reassure my nephew that he hadn't done anything wrong by wanting to try again. I shared a story about a famous athlete who faced setbacks but persevered, ultimately achieving greatness. But my words felt feeble against the mounting pressure he faced at home. The more I learned about the situation, the more concerned I became. My nephew was starting to dread the idea of playing piano altogether, feeling the pressure of living up to his father's unrealistic expectations. I couldn't help but feel that my brother's approach could potentially scar his son's confidence. Would he really allow his father's insecurities to dictate his future? My heart ached for him, and I knew I needed to take action. What could I do to help him navigate this tough situation? Part 4. Seeking guidance and support. As I pondered how to support my nephew, I remembered the importance of seeking guidance when facing challenges. I considered talking to a counselor or therapist to gain some insights. I wanted to help my nephew without overstepping again, but the idea of him losing his passion for music was unbearable. I made an appointment with my doctor to discuss potential resources available for him. In the meantime, I reached out to my parents. They were unaware of the turmoil my nephew was experiencing, and when I shared the details with them, their concern was palpable. They immediately rallied behind me, expressing a desire to help. Together, we brainstormed strategies to support my nephew and ensure he wouldn't feel isolated in this struggle. I called my brother to discuss the situation further, hoping to find a way to bridge the gap. However, our conversation quickly escalated into an argument. He insisted that I had no right to intervene in his parenting decisions, and I felt my heart sink. How could he not see that this wasn't just about him? My brother was adamant about cutting me off from my nephew, and I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. I had to take a step back and regroup. Before I knew it, Labor Day was approaching, and I had planned to visit my brother's family. But when I reached out to confirm my plans, he suddenly changed his mind. He said it wasn't a good time for me to visit, due to the ongoing situation. My heart sank further. How could I help my nephew if I was being cut off from him? Would I lose this connection altogether? Part 5. Revelations and New Directions. I spent the next few days feeling conflicted and unsure of how to proceed. My brother's latest text had left me feeling rejected, and I was worried about how this would impact my relationship with my nephew. I had always intended to be a source of support for him, but now it felt like a wall was being built between us. Determined not to let my brother's actions dictate my relationship with my nephew, I decided to reach out to a counselor through my job's employee resources. I explained the situation, and the counselor provided some valuable insights. They suggested that I could inform other family members about what was happening to ensure my nephew had a support system in place. Taking their advice, I called my parents again, sharing the updated information. They were horrified to hear about my brother's behavior and immediately began discussing potential actions we could take. The idea of seeking a wellness check for my nephew surfaced, along with contacting a pastor at their church. It felt like a relief to know that I wasn't alone in this fight for my nephew's well-being. I felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope. I would do everything in my power to ensure my nephew knew he was loved and supported, regardless of his father's actions. I decided to reach out to my brother one last time, hoping to convey my concerns without escalating tensions. But with each passing day, I felt the pressure mounting. Would my brother ever understand the damage he was doing, or would my nephew be left to navigate these turbulent waters alone? Part 6. A New Beginning. After sending my brother that final message, I anxiously awaited his response. The silence was deafening, but I had to remain hopeful. I knew I had done everything I could to advocate for my nephew. Meanwhile, my parents took action, reaching out to the pastor at their church to discuss the situation. It was comforting to know that there were people who cared about my nephew's well-being and were willing to help. I felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope. I would do everything in my power to ensure my nephew knew he was loved and supported, regardless of his father's actions. I decided to reach out to my brother one last time, hoping to convey my concerns without escalating tensions. But with each passing day, I felt the pressure mounting. Would my brother ever understand the damage he was doing, or would my nephew be left to navigate these turbulent waters alone? Part 6. A New Beginning. After sending my brother that final message, I anxiously awaited his response. The silence was deafening, but I had to remain hopeful. I knew I had done everything I could to advocate for my nephew. Meanwhile, my parents took action, reaching out to the pastor at their church to discuss the situation. It was comforting to know that there were people who cared about my nephew's well-being and were willing to help. Finally, my brother responded, but not in the way I had hoped. He expressed his anger and disappointment at my decision to involve my parents, claiming it was an invasion of privacy. My heart sank. I could feel the rift between us growing wider, but I had to remind myself that my priority was my nephew. In the days that followed, I focused on finding ways to connect with my nephew without directly involving my brother. I sent him messages filled with encouragement and reminders of his talent. I even considered visiting him without telling my brother, but I knew that could lead to more conflict. Instead, I decided to take the high road and wait for the right moment to support him. As Labor Day came and went, I realized that while my brother may not be ready to understand my perspective, my nephew's journey was far from over. I hoped that one day he would find the courage to return to music and reclaim his passion. And no matter what, I would be there for him, cheering him on every step of the way. The road ahead might be rocky, but I believed that my nephew's resilience would shine through. With love and support, he could overcome anything life threw at him. He was never alone.